I've been thinking about this a lot, and I was going to do a blog post about it.
Mm-hmm. I was also, but I never really
all do
get
several.
into it.
Yes, we could. It'll be fun. We can all do one.
Okay.
But one of the first pieces of advice that I was thinking about doling out in my great wisdom was be patient.
Martin.
Be patient and compassionate. That's the first thing.
Sure.
Because, okay, in as much as, depending upon how fundamentalist they are and how emotional and intolerant they might be about suddenly being confronted with the godless child, you have to realize they are the ones caught in this deep-seated delusion. Mm-hmm. And they have the thing that is difficult to overcome. You don't necessarily. I mean, you're thinking this thing through, you're thinking about your identity. They have essentially absorbed their religion into their lives, and it is very, very different for them to think in any sort of context that doesn't involve the religion at its root. And so they're going to be upset. They may very well be deeply emotional. It'll be a fraught situation. You need to just try to show patience with them, especially if they get really, really horrible. You know, the worse they get, the nicer and calmer you need to be about the situation, because ultimately, creeds, beliefs, ideologies aren't worth tearing a family up about. And one of the things that I think is very insidious about religion is that it has that capacity to break families up, to split up these bonds. And so I would say, first off, determine what, if you're worried about this as an issue to begin with, clearly what you want is to keep a relationship with your family going.
Right.
You want to have a good relationship with your parents, brother, sister, whoever you're having conflict with. So you get to realize right out of the gate, okay, whatever is going on here, it's not worth losing my relationship with this person, this family tie. Even though we deeply disagree about the belief system, we can have a meeting of minds. It's just going to be harder work for them.
But at the same time, depending on how old you are, there is a limit to the amount of stuff that you have to take.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, parents would like the opportunity to shape their kids' lives, and with some parents, the goal is to get them to be an independent person and flying out on their own, because that is the hallmark of a successful parent. But with other parents, there are grievances that are so bad, and bear in mind that religious parents are people who believe that their kids who believe that non-believers are going to a place of fire and damnation and torture forever. And while it's unfortunate that they would believe that sort of thing, you should recognize that it is psychologically difficult to square that. And there's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on because they don't want their kid to go to hell, right? And yet they have to believe, based on the doctrine, that the kid is not only going to this place of fire and torment forever, but they somehow deserve it. And on some level, it's admirable that somebody who has this irrational belief would want to spare their kid, and it's difficult to square that idea with the idea that their kid ought to be spared, and I mean with the idea that their kid deserves this punishment, and without this magical voodoo belief, won't get the free ticket, which they never really think about. But according to Christianity, it's the victory of mercy over justice, since justice would be going to that bad place.
Yeah. That is one reason why the sort of silent agreement that I have reached with my own parents is that religion has become this thing that we just don't really discuss. It's casually mentioned, occasionally it comes up. But my mother especially has swallowed lock, stock, and barrel everything, every aspect of it, hell, heaven, and punishment, etc., etc. And it is a source of great emotional anguish to her, the thought that her little boy is going to go to hell, right? And that, in me, is just one more thing that I can check on my list of reasons to resent and hate the hell out of Christianity. Because it has introduced this unnecessary emotional anguish into her life. She is fearing and becoming distraught over something that she doesn't need to fear.
Yeah, now, never having been a Christian myself, I do not, I've never had that emotional state where I imagine somebody that I love spending an eternity in this bad place. But, I mean, you know, using my powers of empathy, I can imagine that that if I genuinely believed that my son would suffer this horrible fate, then I would be suffering from some crippling fear, because that's a horrible thing to imagine. I even, you know, get kind of heartsick at movies where bad stuff happens to pretend kids. It makes me sad, and it makes me imagine myself in that situation, and I can't imagine what parents must be going through dealing with that nonsense.
Yeah, because it's essentially the cruelest form of emotional blackmail you can commit against someone. You know, telling them, look, all your loved ones, and they're going to burn forever, and et cetera, et cetera. So, I wish that there was a piece of one-size-fits-all advice that we could give to, you know, our viewers, our atheist viewers who are young and just about to, you know, figuring out how to come out and how to deal with mom and dad and brother and sister and what have you. It's really not as simple as that. It's, at the best I could say, it's a situation where you are just going to have to feel everything out, read the individual situation that you're in, read the responses that you're getting, and decide for yourself whether or not it is a subject that should even be pursued. I mean, that is also another option. Whether or not you even decide to talk about religion with your folks, if it is this thing that causes a big upset. Yeah, and it really does depend on the level of your parents' commitment to these beliefs and the age you are. Because, you know, if you're out of the house and living on your own, then it's going to be unpleasant. Just ask Matt and Jeff. They're going to call you a lot. They're going to be concerned for your eternal soul. They're going to go through the same kind of arguments that we get on this show, and not very well, because they're not practiced at it. They're not practiced at it, and they're in this emotionally fraught state, too. Yeah. So. On the other hand, if you're, say, 15, and you're in high school, they still have legal power over you, and they can, you know, they can drag you to church, depending on drag me to hell. What kind of parents they are. And they can, you know, they can do all sorts of things to make your life a living hell. So, most of the emails that we get seem to be, the ones that ask this particular question, seem to be from, like, college kids. Right. Which, for the most part. We don't hear from too many 40-year-olds. You know, it's in a halfway point, because I assume most of the parents are paying for their college. So there's that huge chunk of money and their life future that they could withhold from them if they chose. And then also... well, no, I've never heard that particular concern voiced in one of these emails, but although that, I guess, would be a concern. Right, but well, I mean, mainly, you know, being a disowned person, I mean, being disowned by your parents is different when you're 20 than when you're 30. Well, sure, but I think mainly the concern is just they're not wanting some just major family rift over this. The young atheist is wanting their parents to be simply understanding of their lack of belief, and essentially realizing that, hi, it's still me here. I'm no different a person, a human being. Except now I'm dead forever. Except that I don't believe in God, and according to you, I'm going to go like a fire. But I'm still me. I still have the same likes. I still have the same personality. The same things still make me laugh, make me happy, make me sad. Right. You know, I still like softball if I was playing softball. All of these, I'm still the same person that I was, and suddenly being godless is not going to transform me overnight into, you know, Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs or something. So it's just going to be a situation that you'll have to feel out on your own. I mean, it's wonderful if there's just a one formula that people could deal with in terms of bringing their families on board, or at least assuaging those fears. But there's really not, because everyone's different. Everyone has their different emotional marks that they have to hit.
Yeah, of course, the answer we have when we get these emails is we never do have an answer, do we? No. Because, I mean, we can sit here and philosophize and tell you to see things from your parents' perspective, but, I mean, you know, it's gonna be rough coming out to your parents at any age, and it's gonna be rougher at some ages, and I don't know, when anybody figures out what the optimal way to come out to their parents and keep things smooth and friendly is, let us know.
Yeah. Although, again, sometimes I've spoken to some folks and friends of mine who've told me that they ended up being very pleasantly surprised that a parent did not have.
Yeah, and some parents eventually become atheists. Maybe I mean, didn't Dan Barker's whole family, his brother anyway, eventually become an atheist?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. I haven't followed his life too closely.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I read his
Losing Faith.
Losing Faith. Yeah, and he's got a recent one, Godless, which I think has all the good bits of losing faith in faith and some new material. So,
all right,
that's a good one.